So a new development in just the last couple of hours from the Vice President, JD Vance, giving a blunt assessment on how, in his view, the administration mishandled the messaging of the Jeffrey Epstein case. Here's his words on the Joe Rogan podcast. We absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files. That's what he said, that they screwed up the comms. Vance went on to point the finger at the former Attorney General, Pam Bondi, for that now infamous moment where she said, remember, the client list is on my desk. Bondi, in a text to NBC News, now says she was taken out of context. But the man hoping to replace her as the next attorney general is also facing questions about the DOJ's handling of all things Jeffrey Epstein. Todd Blanche on Capitol Hill today, acknowledging mistakes, but there's some questions of whether he will meet with survivors. At first, he said he wouldn't be able to, considering best practices. Later, he seemed to open the door to it. Here's some of the interactions with Democrats on that.
I have never said I will not meet with survivors.
Will you meet with these 10 survivors? I'm asking you on the record.
If they have lawyers, as you know, I'm prohibited from meeting directly with them.
Will you get it done within the next 30 days that each of these survivors? I will get it done today if that's necessary. I mean, my point is there's somebody here who can meet with them today, get their information, and arrange to meet with them. I think you ought to be in the room.
Pardon me?
I think you ought to be in the room because you ought to hear this.
I want to bring in now Sky and Amanda Roberts, two of the people who were in that room for that hearing. Of course, the brother and sister-in-law, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, one of the most prominent survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. Thank you both so much for being here, making your way over from the Capitol, where you were basically for most of the day, I understand. And so let me start there. Sky, Todd Blanche, one of the things that he said during this confirmation hearing, as we showed, was that somebody in the Department of Justice would hear out survivors. Do you feel assured? Do you feel confident that somebody will hear you inside the Department of Justice now?
I mean, if it would have happened, it would have happened already, I think is really what I would look at it as. And to be quite honest, I mean, if they really cared about this, they would have done this a long time ago. The reality is that they continue to cover up. We have no faith. I simply do not have faith in this Department of Justice. So even if he wants to reach out and have questions, sure, we'll participate in that conversation. But, I mean, the information's in the files. He's seen the files himself. What is there left to go through?
So nothing you heard today changed your position on Todd Blanche?
Nothing changed my position on Todd Blanche at all. I still believe that he is Trump's personal lawyer. He said it so much himself. And the reality of the situation is that we know many, many survivors, and I don't know of one that he has met with.
I mean, he says, Amanda, that it is because there are some best practices around meeting with them with counsel. Then later, though, it appeared to sound like maybe that would be on the table. At this point, would you want to, with counsel or without counsel, sit down with Todd Blanche?
I think you need to prove you're trustworthy. How about we look at the 6 million documents and the investigative leads, open an investigation and prove that you're willing to do something with the information that you have, and then survivors and their families can have trust in this Department of Justice again.
One of the things he said was that if he's being, with Senator Richard Blumenthal, among other moments, if he's being asked to apologize, he said, of course, I'm sorry to these survivors. He did say, this kind of abuse is horrific, et cetera, while talking about the things that I know have upset you and so many other survivors that we've spoken with, the lack of redactions, et cetera. What was it like in the room when you heard him say that, Amanda? How did that land with you?
It's just words. It's just words. I'd actually like to see him put that in writing. I think it deserves a letter to the survivors. If this Department of Justice, they have now finally admitted that there have been mistakes made, you should reach out to us and you should write us a letter. We've been writing letters since before those files were released to try to outreach to you. When Ghislaine Maxwell was moved, Annie Farmer had written the Department of Justice, no response. No response. I think they need to prove their trust.
You mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell. That is a topic that we have talked about, the three of us, for months and months and months now, a long time, I think coming up on a year now plus. In a conversation with Senator Booker in an interaction there, Todd Blanche said he did not pardon clemency was not raised for Ghislaine Maxwell. Of course, Epstein's convicted co-conspirator, somebody who Virginia writes about extensively in her memoir. He said that no discussion of the movement to a lower security prison camp came up as well. What was your reaction when you heard that?
I mean, to Amanda's point, actions speak louder than words. You can tell me whatever you want to say in those moments, but your actions show that you moved somebody who is convicted of sex trafficking to a minimum security prison that's not fit for that type of person. And even Booker challenged it to the extent of, typically that person gets put in solitary confinement. They don't just get moved into a minimum security prison where they can play with puppies, right? This is unprecedented. I think he was trying to get the point across that this is not normal behavior and that Ghislaine Maxwell is getting preferential treatment from our Department of Justice, and the American people need to start asking why. Why is she getting preferential treatment?
What was it like in the room?
It was heavy. I think, when we heard his responses and the skirts around, you could visibly feel us next to each other squirming in our seats and sighing this and there were moments that were just completely laughable. You expect us to believe now the excuse that the 2.5 million documents, they're duplicative, the courts won't release, and now they're about another guy named Epstein. It was laughable. And there were so many moments where I think we all looked at each other is this really happening? Is he really serious with that response? But it's not shocking. I mean, we've been gaslit, I want to say, when this administration started to release on the fact that they were going to campaign and release these files. We've been gaslit from that moment to this day.
What do you sense as far as momentum now moving forward? Because it's our understanding that it only is going to take one Republican in the Judiciary Committee to vote no to block Todd Blanche's confirmation process for moving forward. Senator Tillis was one of those Republicans that people had their eye on. He came out and told our team he's leaning yes now. Senator Cornyn is the other Republican whose concerns are really more centered around this IRS settlement and this so-called weaponization fund, less on the Epstein case. But what would you say to Senator Cornyn or to any other Republican who might be wavering on this?
I mean, the message is clear. It's stand with survivors. Every survivor has written into the Senate Judiciary Committee. It was submitted as record, and it's very clear that we do not support Todd Blanche as the next Attorney General of the United States. The reality of this is that there are investigative leads, that there are names that are named. Virginia named those names. They're in her deposition. So when he says, I have nothing that I can prosecute on, there's names that he could start with today. They really need to ask the question, why? Why is our Department of Justice, why is Todd Blanche covering this up?
Amanda, I asked this to Scott, but I'll ask you, did you hear anything from Todd Blanche? Any of the acknowledgments of the abuse that survivors suffered? Did anything you hear change your mind on him in any way at all?
Not even a morsel closer to a yes. And I would urge these senators to look at the direction of this country. We are talking about the direct capability of him being able to do this job. He, as a former prosecutor, looked at files of one of the largest sex trafficking industries in modern day history, looked at them and said that there was nothing to see here. When will our Congress decide to push back on the corruption, push back on the cover-up? Who we put in leadership matters. Who we decide to be the leading chief law enforcement matters. It sends a message to every single survivor, not just us. Every single survivor across the globe is watching how we treat this matter. And it really sets a precedent to the direction that this country is going.
A couple more quick questions for you in the minute we have left. I know your schedule is really intense today. When we look at this process and how it has unfolded here, one of the things that we're looking at is other investigative leads that could be out there, including New Mexico. That's one of the last places I saw you. The New Mexico Attorney General has indicated to us that he still has not received the unredacted documents that he wants from the DOJ. What would you say to Todd Blanche, to the Department of Justice, on that matter?
Yeah. Well, we've been actively cooperating with the New Mexico Attorney General's office. We certainly want them to continue this investigation, but it speaks volumes that the Department of Justice is not cooperating with an active investigation in the United States. That the crimes that were committed at Zora Ranch, which we know of, our sister spoke much of this in Nobody's Girl and spoke much of this in her depositions. There are individuals that they can prosecute today, and our Department of Justice is refusing to turn over the files. Think about that for a second. Ask yourself that question, why? It's absolutely appalling. And Virginia would be screaming from a mountain today because what else is this going to take? How much more clear can it get?
Before I let you go, just to bring it back here to the Capitol, to the building just down from where we are, was there any moment where, I didn't see it from my vantage point, where Todd Blanche turned around, had any interaction with you? Did you have any interaction from anybody who was there from the Department of Justice at any point? Or did you hope for that?
I think wasn't there someone that he said we could actually talk to? We weren't approached by her or Todd Blanche. There was never a nod. There wasn't an acknowledgement to us that I know of, or any of the other survivors as well.
And what was that like when that didn't happen for you?
I mean, first and foremost, we didn't expect him to. I mean, we saw what happened in former Attorney General Pam Bondi's hearing, and you know, I guess we had low expectations going into it. It felt like the Attorney General's office continues to not take this seriously. I don't think we pressed him hard enough today on the Epstein, the Epstein files. I don't think we pressed him hard enough, on the investigative leads and the failure of the New Mexico compliance with the Attorney General's office there. So, it's deflating. Every time you have your Department of Justice, you ask, a lot of people are asking, why aren't survivors naming the names or coming forward to other legal entities? They have to earn your trust. What they've shown us, the highest level of government for the Department of Justice, is showing us that they don't truly care about survivors. They can throw every statistic they want down your face. But the reality is their actions speak louder than words. And you had 10 survivors sitting right behind you. This was your opportunity to acknowledge them. You failed to do it again. And you failed to really answer any substantive questions. Nothing got answered today. It was just the show.
Thank you both so much for being here. I know this is one of your numerous trips to Washington and your continued push for advocacy. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.